Hey, this is Tarence Lauchié, and I'd like to thank you for tuning in to this podcast, The Growth Exchange. This podcast was designed to curate conversation, dialogue, and monologue around all things growth. I believe that everything living has the potential to grow into its fullest and most maximal potential. So let's grow. This episode is sponsored by Speak Media Services, where we believe everyone deserves the opportunity to capture and preserve their unique stories. You're not just another number in the crowd. Your individuality matters. Our intimate photography and videography services are tailored to your vision and budget, ensuring your essence shines through. Allow us to help preserve the moments that mean the most. With our support, you'll create cherished keepsakes to treasure for years to come. Speak Media Services, your story, your way. You ever wonder what it takes? Do you have what it takes? Oftentimes we are prescribed a certain set of expectations relating to having what it takes to succeed, to grow, to develop, to be everything that we were intended to be. I call it potential, but I always suffix the word potential with maximal or maximizing. Maximizing potential is really taking advantage of every opportunity that we have to become everything that we were designed to become. God made us intricately. There's scripture that talks about us being known by God before we were even formed or shaped in our mother's womb, which means that He intricately knit within us certain attributes and traits that will help us succeed in life, which means that all we need is all we have. And all we have is all we need in order to be the full person that it is that we were designed to be. I enjoy talking about these moments of growth and these challenges that we face and overcome in order to actualize growth. I also enjoy talking about leadership and personal leadership development and how it intricately helps to advance kingdom assignments, the earthly goals and objectives, the success of families, just individual success. And success isn't always monetized. It's not always calculated by quantitative measures, but the quality of our lives, our life choices, our life decisions, and what we've been given makes all the difference in the world. Let me ask a couple of questions. When you think about growth and you think about what it takes to grow in order to become better or to become more of who it is that you currently are, or maybe even a different version of yourself, what are the few imperatives that come to mind? I think in one of these solo monologues, I shared some of the imperatives of what it means to be good at personal development and growth. But I want to continue to build on that. And from time to time, I'll share just those things that stand out. These are elements to growth. And we can even take the word growth and break it down. I look at growth as being grit. It literally is, by design, the ability to endure and to stay in there and to fight for what is yours, for what you know is rightfully your prescription. God has designed something specifically for each of us in life, and fulfilling that is quite fulfilling and overwhelmingly joyous. But in the process, you have to be able to identify and endure grit, because it takes grit in order to grow. The other thing that I'd like to interject here would be resilience. Now, those two are not the same. Sometimes people will identify grit and resilience because, it's the stick-to-itiveness that comes with grit that people say, well, that's resiliency. Well, resiliency stands alone because it has everything to do with the ability to bounce back. When you think of resilience, maybe the image in your mind would be a huge rubber band being stretched beyond its natural proportion, and then when you release it, it springs back. I think our resilience and our ability to spring back and to reshape and redevelop, not losing form after being distorted in some kind of way, is also another element or an attribute to what we would call quantitative growth. The other thing would be opportunity. Opportunities are often wrapped up in challenges. Sometimes we see defeat as failure, when I look at defeat and failure as both opportunities. Those are both opportunities. When defeat comes our way, meaning we were beat by a circumstance or beat by a situation, now we are stronger as a result of it because, we know what our greatest match is. And we can use that as a measuring point. In fact, the ceiling becomes the floor in those instances. And so failure, likewise, is an opportunity to learn. I think it was a prolific speaker who once said, if you're going to fail forward. At least you'll be able to say that you're closer to your goal and your objective. Get up and keep moving. I want to encourage people through this dialogue, this ongoing conversation about growth, that, there's grit and resilience, but opportunities are always around us. And opportunities are often shrouded in what we would look as a negative situation. We would look at it as being something negative or something, to overcome. I think there's a couple type of people in the world, those that see the glass as half empty and those who see the glass as half full. And then the third person is the person who's just glad to have a glass. The opportunity to get more or to share what they have or to survive on less. I mean, think for a moment about how opportunities are around us every single day. When we wake up in the morning, if we wake up, that's an opportunity. And when we're breathing, that's an opportunity. You blink your eyes and they open up again. That's an opportunity. They didn't stay shut. So think about opportunity as being another key element to growth. We also have to think about our worth. I heard a lesson most recently about the difference between being worthy and understanding worth. None of us are worthy. We oftentimes identify, with some of the popular statements like, I am enough, so I'm worthy of someone's love, or I'm worthy of something that I get. And really, we're not worthy. I believe that God is the only sovereign and worthy one there is, but his attributes in us give us value or worth. So we have worth without having to be worthy. The thing about worthy is that it's left up to judgment. It's left up to comparison. It's left up to whether or not something is better than something else. When worth is just simply ascribed, when God, wrote out our name in destiny, he also put worth or value to it. So we have to identify as part of the growth process, identifying our worth, knowing what we're worth. We really only value those things that we're passionate about, and we're really only passionate about the things that we value. So worth is an important element. The other one is tenacity. Tenacity. I know that's similar to grit, and it's also similar to resilience, but tenacity is a dogged determination to keep moving, regardless of the circumstances and regardless of the obstacles that are in the way. To be tenacious or to have tenacity simply means to find a way when there is no way, to continue when everything points towards stopping. You still move. Someone mentioned to me the other day, I said, it's good to see you. And they said, it's good to be seen, as opposed to being viewed. And, that's an old saying around the church. And I think it's true. But I say, hey, well, keep flapping those arms. As long as you're moving, they'll know you're alive. And I think tenacity is epitomized in our ability to keep moving, even if it's at a slower pace. So don't give up when you face challenges or even succumb to what appears to be failure in that moment. Remember, it's an opportunity, but somehow you gain tenacity by continuing to get up. Another motivational speaker says, keep getting up. You never stop getting up. All right. As long as you can look up after you've fallen down, you can get up. And if you can get up, you can move forward. Speak up and be who you are in a tenacious way. It can be annoying, but probably only to your adversaries. So be tenacious. The other thing I would say is humility. That's the last one if we're looking at growth as an acronym or an acrostic. When we think of humility is not something that we can claim upon ourselves. If I were to say I am a humble person, I just degraded what it means to be humble because I've now framed myself as identifying me as humble. But humility is what other people see about you. They see these attributes that don't point just towards oneself, but they point toward the betterment of others, the understanding or submission to a higher authority. For me, it's God. For me, it's God has ordered my steps and my destiny is carved out. But you need to think about what humbles you, what is bigger than you and greater than you. I think of my family. I think of how God has blessed me to have a wonderful family of offspring and their spouses, and now now they have offspring. And it's humbling to me because it all started with this homeless kid from Detroit who went away to college, didn't have very many choices other than to go away to college in order to have a place to live, and then went back and started taking care of some family members. But it was God's design. But it's very humbling to know that those beginnings, you hear people say humble beginnings, those beginnings were part of my story. They're part of the destiny that God has mapped out for me. It's part of the very clear pathway that was designed in walking to get to the next place that I'm getting in my life. I'm beginning to take these reflective glances back to see where God has brought me from, and to see that it was Him who begun this work inside of me. But I also trust and depend that it's Him who's going to finish the work. Now, when we consider our frailty or our mortality, we really have to think about how good God has been. And without becoming a preacher here for a moment, I want to share with you that the things that you've overcome and the challenges that you faced and made it out, they were not of your own goodness. So humility kind of summarizes how we should take a stance when it comes to looking at where we are. Of course, you've got to look at where you come from in order to know where it is that you're going. But I always strongly encourage humbling oneself, or being a man or woman of humility intentionally, by effort. Do whatever is necessary to point the shine the light, share the light, if nothing else. There are some people who believe they were born to be served as opposed to serving, and that short circuits the potential and the opportunity for us to be maximally everything that God called us to be. Doing for others, serving other people, acts of kindness and humility are very strong attributes. I was talking to the team, the Growth Exchange team, about some of the episodes that we've recorded up to this point. And I'm very grateful, by the way, of you tuning in, you listening, sharing, watching this, and even encouraging other people with clips and segments. And to all the guests, shout out to every one of them. I think they've been informative and engaging. But something that stood out is the energy that happens when there is an exchange that takes place. There is this unexplainable energy when people talk and respond, when people listen and respond, when people interject and then respond. I think about how response is the adjective to describe, or the term used to describe what happens after something has been initiated. I think growth has been initiated just by virtue of us being here. But what's the response to growth? What do we do with this mandate to grow? What do we do with this opportunity to grow? What do we do with God's design plan for us to grow? If we are alive, we're growing. If you're not growing, then your aliveness is diminishing. So I strongly encourage that you take advantage of the energy that comes when you're in exchange with people. Be careful, because you don't want to exchange negative energy for your positive energy. You don't necessarily want to produce negative energy for someone else's positive energy. So you match the energy. And if you find yourself having to degrade the energy level in the response between you and another person communicating, you need to probably consider another person to communicate with, somebody that matches the positive energy, the objectives, the growth design that you're trying to accomplish. So energy is one thing, but when energy is released, we are inspired to grow when the right type of energy is released. And so in these dialogues and conversations, I'm finding great worth and value in the exchange, great worth and value in being able to go back and forth and listen to people's stories, but also to challenge them on maybe assessing where they were most challenged in their growth process, or what are the patterns, what are the strategies for their own growth and success. So these exchanges of energy have been very enlightening, and I encourage you to look for those. I encourage you to find someone. They say that the individual is a sum total of the closest 5 people in their lives, which means if you can count 5 people that are probably in your most recently called or contact numbers, they will describe your energy. Some of them probably have taken energy, some of them give energy, but the culmination of those 5 people, that top 5, will determine your energy level. What type of energy are you putting out? Now, energy is used to produce things. Energy is used in order to light cities. Energy is used to cool spaces. Energy is a resource of which There is an unlimited supply. We just simply have to be conscientious and intentional about how we use it, how we conserve it, and then how we appropriate it in the various places. I want to wrap up with this thought. In the growth journey, in the process of growing, it is a process, and we got to trust the process. In the process of growing, there is always that one moment that you have a revelation. There's always that one interval, or maybe even one word. I'm a one-word kind of guy. Not that I speak in one-word sentences, but I like to hone in on one word. If I'm talking to somebody and I'm listening, I'll hear one word and it'll trigger the conversation between the two of us to go further. Even in a group, if I'm listening, ear hustling is what I call it. I hear one word, and that one word gives impetus to dig in deeper, to look at definition and etymology. Where did the word come from? What's the origin of the word? And what does that word do to advance or to grow? I believe that a word is somewhat like a seed, that when it is planted, when it is nurtured, when it is watered, it grows. And not only does it grow and fulfill its intent or its purpose in becoming grown, but it also reproduces. And then there are subsequent words that come as a result of that. So part of the growth process and the journey of growth is to be sensitive and aware of the words that we use, the words that we receive, the words that are the catalyst for building everything that we are and everything that we can become. So I want to encourage you to stay on this journey. I want to encourage you to stay focused on what it means to grow and what it means to exchange that growth through bettering the lives of someone else. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié, and you've been listening to the Growth Exchange podcast. Thanks for tuning in. If you're a business or a nonprofit looking to tell your story through powerful video, you've got to check out 630 Visions. They specialize in creating high-quality cinematic content that not only looks amazing, but actually helps you grow your brand and connect with your audience. I've seen their work. It's purposeful, professional, and built around your vision. Visit 630visions.com, that's 630visions.com, to learn more and to see how they can help bring your story to life. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Growth Exchange. I'm Dr. Tarence Lauchié. It's been a pleasure to have these conversations and dialogues with our guests. If you notice, one thing we all share in common, and that is the ability, the desire, and the potential to grow and maximize our fullest potential. So keep tuning in. Share this with somebody, like it, maybe even invite somebody. And if you'd like to be a guest, contact us with the information that's here and available for you. Let's grow.